Agenda item 323, Trailblazer reunion. Karen.
Yes, just this is a big event happening in March, on 16th of March. It's pretty well detailed in my report. I believe councillors have been invited to attend on the day. Understand that it is election day, and they've been advised that we won't have a polling booth operating out there, but community is really excited about this, with 75 of our 100 allocation tickets sold already, so it's really good. So happy to take questions.
Questions, councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's a request for assistance, have we got the request for assistance form, or is it coming to us in a different sort of?
It's a request, sorry, through the chair, it's a request from me as the officer. It hasn't come from the Trailblazers. It's for preparing the road in to the jump up, cleaning up around the jump up area.
Yep.
Providing generators, tables, chairs. The Alpha Jockey Club are supplying some equipment there as well. So it's more, I guess, majority of the cost will be on labour costs preparing the road in.
Yeah.
And also to preserve the road, we'll be running 2 shuttle buses from designated areas around Alpha.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is the budget. It's not currently budgeted, but what part of the budget would this come out from? Community assistance organisations, or would we just put it into maintenance?
Mayor.
There's a couple of options, councillor. They can come out of the community donations budget. There is, as we'll see shortly, there is a bit of money left in that budget. Also, the community events budget as well is probably undersubscribed at the moment as well.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, so Karen, the organisers of this event, they haven't requested anything. This is a request from yourself.
Yes, because it's at the jump up, and the jump up hasn't been utilised for quite some time, so it needs a bit of work done in order to hold the event there. And so, like I said, in order to prepare the roads and the facility there, plus some lighting on the night, there'd be 2 buses, some couple of generators, some marquees, tables and chairs, that sort of equipment hire. The people at the event will be volunteers, so the Jockey Club will be running the bar, and that'll be all volunteers, and they will also be supplying a cold room and some of the equipment as well.
So this has been run by Lance Smith.
Correct. And not only will benefit Alpha, I think, they're having, I believe, breakfast the next morning at Jericho, and they'll be travelling through the region, so spending throughout the region along the way. But certainly most of it spent in Alpha.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is really, it's by way of in-kind support of the waivers. I'm in support of it. Just if we've got money in the events, like Dan said, it's probably a good place. It's not budgeted for, unless it can just be put into maintenance for the jump up road. And do we generally clean that road up every year, or in there?
No, not every year. On an as needs basis, it could have been a couple of years since it's last seen graded, like it's only if it gets washed away or
Yeah,
something that it gets.
because I know a lot of the tourists walk up that road, don't
They do.
they?
But tourism very keen for us to see, the track that developed with, signage and like, and I'd imagine this event's going to accelerate their requests somewhat. Stairs, but yeah, which are a very expensive option.
And it is like, I mean, it's March. It's March, isn't
March
it?
16th,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean,
Election day.
yeah, that's right. It's, if we get that done, it's not going to be lost. It'll be useful for the tourists anyway, going into the next month, April. So I recommend that we approve that, unless there's any objection.
I'm supportive of it, Mr Mayor. I just want to clarify whether it was an external request or whether it's, and the next item is similar. And I know, as you just mentioned, that the tourism have mentioned about being able to do some work and better utilise the natural surrounds of the jump up and access to it. So if that helps, if this helps in a little way.
Excuse me, Sue, are we recording or?
Yes.
Oh, it looked like it was stopped. I'll put my glasses on.
No,
Sorry.
no.
Okay, sorry.
All good. Councillor Plum?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm all for this. I think it's going to be a great event.
Councillor Hampton?
Yeah, I'm in favour of it, Mr Mayor. Just a question, do we actually own lighting towers or do we hire them?
Through the chair, I've sought those through Brent's Rentals. We don't have lighting towers at this point in time. We do have other lighting there. These lightings is more for where the toilets will be and where the bus will come. So it's more of a safety. Safety won't be shining back into the concert.
I was just curious of whether we actually did own lighting towers.
It's not that I'm aware of.
Councillor Peebles?
Mr Mayor, I'm in favour. I was just curious to where the request come from, actually.
Councillor Gleeson? Yeah, I'm in favour. That's the way it is. Do I have a mover? Councillor Plum, second. Councillor Arthur, those in favour? 7-0. Jericho State School. Karen?
Sorry, I'm out of order here. So this was a request from Jericho State School to upgrade the oval and, well, not to upgrade the oval, but have water connected from the Turkey's Nest so they could water the oval and use it as also as green space for the community. I have all that in there. There's a plan that was drawn up by the senior work supervisor and the plumber, and happy to take questions.
Councillor? Yep, Councillor Gleeson?
Couple of questions. With the costing, I suppose the question is more maybe, Karen, if you don't mind, directed to the Director of Works. Number one, is the water supply there? Out of the board, have we got the water supply there to be able to do what they irrigate the area?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we do, councillor, and also it won't be coming from the Turkey's Nest. It'll be a direct line from the bore off the Turkey Nest supply line. And it'll only be a 63 mil line, it won't be 90.
That was my next question, was in the quote here, there was a 90 mil lines, the cost of material $12,000. I am sure that in my thoughts, 90 was way too excessive, so with a little bit of luck, those materials costs wouldn't be as expensive, I wouldn't imagine.
So is that
Once
60
again,
mil?
just to clarify that through the chair, that it's going into tanks, so it's an open-ended supply, not a float demand. So, a 63 mil line will be sufficient.
Yes, yeah.
Again, Mr Mayor, the 50-50 cost on it, what do you think the total cost is going to be, Karen?
You've got, through you, Mr Mayor, I have done some figures, and I didn't bring them with me today in my notebook, but with the 63 mil line, we've probably got about a $5,000 saving just on the supply of the pipe. And you know, the fittings are cheaper as well, obviously. So I reckon, well, we can have a considerable saving on what was quoted. So probably around about, the labour component won't change, but the total cost will be down around about between 12 and 15,000.
So,
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I just to you, Kerry, when we talk about potable water, you said it's coming from the Turkey's Nest
Supply.
so that Turkey's Nest would be rainwater or groundwater?
no, it's the supply line from the board to the turkey.
From the board to the Turkey's Nest. There's an existing line.
Yep.
And it goes to the washdown point.
Yep.
And then to the Turkey's Nest.
Yep.
And we just propose to take a T off that supply to the Turkey's Nest.
So, what I'm getting at is, you know, we'll spend a lot of money getting this water to where it's got to go, then all of a sudden we'll find out that it won't grow a particular grass or it won't grow trees. You know, has the water been tested so that we know what it's like, so that the people that are running the grounds can make that necessary adjustment with their fertiliser and things like that, so we can see something? It's no use spending a lot of money and getting the water there if it's not going to grow what we want it to grow.
Through the chair, Councillor Plum, we have, all of our water is tested, both pre and post treatment. So this is pre-treatment. So we have traditional water test results for all of that.
It's the old original bore that the Jericho town used to run on pre the establishment of a treatment plant. It's been used for town gardens and so forth plenty before.
Yep, no, that's okay. I just didn't want to go to this expense and do something if it wasn't going to fully, you know, be utilised or fully work us up to the standard we wanted it to run. That's all.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Peoples just asked the question, and I'm not sure the answer. 50-50 with the costing. 50-50, which 50-50 of the connection of the pipes and the connections, which say $20,000, so they come up with 10 and we come up with 10, or is that what you think?
That was my understanding, but I'm happy to take that on notice and go back to the principal of the school to confirm.
I thought it was, we just, whatever the cost to connect to them,
To the fence line.
to the fence line would be our cost, and out inside the fence would be their cost. So the cheaper we could do the bit to the fence, the better. Like hence, taking away 90 HDP and putting in 63 mil standard pipe.
So through you, Mr Mayor, it isn't that we just connect it, we'll just do the whole lot and then we both go 50-50. It's just that council goes to the fence and then they do the rest, yeah.
And it happens to be, if you look at the costings, if that was the way it went, it would be a 50-50 partnership, but if we do our bit in 63 mil, theirs might be a little bit more. So I would think that the resolution would be amended to read, agrees to connect non-potable water to the boundary of the Jericho State School. Here, the cost we think will be in the order of $20,000 with hopefully a $5,000 saving. That way, whatever happens inside the school boundary, we're not responsible for. Who knows what they could uncover in there? Who knows the little tricks and tribulations, the cost of the size tank, the pump, the electrical connection to put a pump on. That's their problem. We look after getting them access to the potable water. From there on would be, I would suggest, their problem. Not their problem, their issue.
Yes.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, it's just a question and there's probably a good answer for it. If we take water to the fence, why would they be shifting it 151 metres to the tanks can they have the tanks where we actually take the water to that fence, or is there'd be a good reason, obviously, why they're going to go 150 metres from there, or is it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe they may have an existing system, watering system there. And they just want to make their existing watering system more reliable, and, you know, the source of water is just behind the school, whereas they've been using treated water. And it takes a load off the treated water system as well.
So I guess there'd be an obvious reason for it, you know, I'm just curious about what's.
So, Mr Mayor,
Yeah, when I first read it, I thought it was 50-50 of the whole project. But, so are we 50-50 to do that to the fence now?
No. The confusion there has been that the project is it looks like the initial costings, it was going to cost us $20,000 to connect the fence and then $20,000 on. So in effect it was 50-50. But our component, our funding would purely be to give them the connection at the fence, and then whatever happened inside the school would be that'd be up to them. So we'll have to amend that if you're of a mind to go this way, yes. It might be cheaper to run power across, Councillor Hanson asked the question, it might be cheaper to run the power to the other side once they know this, and, you know, I probably would think not actually. I think a polyline would be a long way cheaper to run than power. They've got no power over there to run their pumps.
It was just a query's question.
You would hope that they do their diligence on where and how they site what they do. They could run some.
through you, Mr Mayor, do we have any information on how much water they use? And
Well, they don't currently irrigate. It's not currently irrigated. That's to the extent that they want to do it this time.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do because they don't want to blow anyone's budget with potable water. So this is to investigate doing something that's not currently undertaken as cheaply as possible to all parties.
So they might have a smaller system that they want to get back.
So does anywhere else in Jericho use it or not? No. Other than Washington Bay.
Washington Bay and Turkey's next.
And the Turkey's this is just we'll be doing roadworks, or contractors are doing roadworks. That's all it's for. It's fenced, like there's a pump there on it. It's just got a big overhead supply for the trucks to pull up underneath it. They start, pump it, fills them, off they go.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to see us run a connection to the school overall because just the issues and the cost of us treating the water in Jericho, it's going to take they use a lot of water already. They do have lawns and garden all around, and they're well kept, so the amount of water in there, if we can give them non-potable water, it'll take pressure off our treatment system, and yeah, I think.
And improve outcomes for the
yeah,
school.
yeah.
I mean,
I'm all for it. The less that we have to treat, the better.
I
It's
think,
used.
yeah, can we just probably amend that again? Can we agree to connect non-potable water to the Jericho State School boundary for the purposes, or whatever, because the oval,
Boundary,
yeah, to the boundary. We'll stop that later. Because the oval is technically not on the boundary.
Just three, Mr Mayor, on Linda's comment about treating water, is there a possibility for us to save more watering some of the rain here and there, if we put that line in, have another connection on off that for our own council use as green spaces? Well, I'm not exactly sure where this pipe's going to run, but is there somewhere else we can?
That's the problem. Ironically, it's like almost right on the back boundary of the school, like there's nothing, we don't have any green space between the ball, the turkey nest and the school, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's out the back of Gibson's yard.
Yeah, just looking at it, well, it's a possibility to save more money if we had that opportunity to use it again.
And
The only thing, sorry.
I was just going to add to what Councillor Hanson, I was going to say, there are other towns that I found out that do use potable water throughout the whole town, but it's, obviously they already have that system, like, it's a lot of money, but just to, yeah, it would be good, I think, to look into whether there was any areas we could use non-potable water, and those, like Alpha as well, Jericho, and treat it, whether there's any cost efficient ways to do it.
Councillor Peoples moved, seconded Councillor Rogers. Debate? Those in favour? 7-0. I think I'm out of the room. No, not for this one. Sorry, 325. Karen.
Yes, this is a request from the Alpha Show Society for in-kind donation and fee waiver for the showgrounds for this year's Alpha Show. This year it is combined with Jericho, they'll be joining in. It's what we've supplied in the past, so some sand for the kids, suppression water trucks and the generators. So happy to take questions.
Questions? Where are we at? I guess, any opposition?
I'm supportive of Mr Mayor. I'm not wavering that the society is relatively financial, but I'm sure agricultural shows go up and down in how much money they've got from decade to decade. And I think it's important that we do support our ag shows and events like that as much.
Yeah, so obviously, as I said earlier, I'm not on the executive anymore, but I'm intimately familiar with the finances of this organisation. It is my experience that you need about $50,000 to run a show if you don't have cattle. And we've had instances, and if you look through the income statements that are provided, and this is why I absolutely love the fact that the new procedures do make it transparent. There is considerable revenue, but it is almost all driven from cattle, and cattle numbers can fluctuate. It is actually harder to get fat cattle for the show in a wet year than it is in a dry year. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, but floods and wet weather have cost us more show cattle availability simply because it rains the week of the show and you can't get them there. So if the show never gets cancelled because there's no cattle, but vice versa happens all the time. So if you don't have cattle and you've got all the entertainment because no one turns up to these shows for free, you've got to pay them all the sideshow alleys these days, they can blow what they've got, half of what they've got in one show. So
That's what I mean, like a couple of bad seasons or bad years of the agricultural show circuit, and I can see that getting eaten up.
That's right.
Relatively quickly, so it's
a very good point to point out. Yes, there is a bit of money there, but it unfortunately could all vaporise overnight. So do I have a mover? Councillor Rogers, second, Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? 7-0. Yeah.
Item 326. Karen, do you want to add anything to or say anything about your recommendation?
I think it's all in the report there. I would probably hand over to Kerry for his opinion on this request. As it's similar to the Jericho School.
Thanks. Kerry, anything to say about that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have a technical problem with this at all. It makes sense, just like the last, the one for the school. And the actual bore supply from the bores in Alpha to the treatment plant run directly past Fordham Park. So we supply an offtake to the boundary, and all of our, it doesn't matter if the water is charged or not, we still put a water meter on every supply, because under the Queensland Water Act we've got to put our returns in every year for every drop of water against each licence that we use. So it will still be metered and etc., but I don't have a technical comment, but
Thanks.
Sorry, Kerry. Madam Chair, I'm going to leave the meeting.
Okay.
Councillor Pickens at the meeting. 7 minutes from 11.
Has anyone else got anything that they want to add to this or say about this? Councillor Gleeson?
Madam Chair, I think it's necessary. I believe it's necessary. They're asking for approval. It's a request. There's no dollars. At this point in time, there's no dollar value put on it. But the amount of money that the council could save by not using treated water, I think it's necessary. And the Director of Works, Kerry, you just mentioned meter. We haven't got to write that in the resolution, have we? Because like the last resolution at the Jericho School, it'll be automatically part of the job to meter as it's coming off the line.
through you, Madam Chair, yes, councillor is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Hanson, and you want to add?
No, it's through Deputy Mayor. I think it's a great idea because the race course is used for some major fundraising in Alpha and saving on treating water as well. But it just gives that venue a nicer attraction and nicer look for fundraising in the future.
Councillor Arthur?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, do we have an indicative cost of how much it's going to cost us? Any idea? I wouldn't expect it to be a lot, but
Because
The
the map, on the map, it looks as though it's even closer than
Very
the
close,
school.
very much closer.
So it should be less than the school of Jericho.
Yes.
Those costings, yeah.
yeah,
And
but
potentially a straight line.
whether it's $1,000 or $100,000, at a minimum, we need some idea. And then again, ideally, like if we know how much, I'm all for it. It makes sense, but making sense in itself isn't enough. We need a little bit of information about, is it going to save us money? Well, I assume so. Because we're not using like treated water that costs us however much to treat it. It's probably not taking any less water out of the system, it's just not using our treated water.
Through the chair, less pressure on the water treatment plant in Alpha as well.
Would you be more comfortable,
Oh,
councillor Arthur?
without a dollar figure, I'm all for it, but without a dollar figure, I don't think it probably shouldn't even come to council without a dollar figure on it.
Would you prefer to change that to the council, that figures for that project be brought back to council at the next meeting?
Either that or we
approval?
put a maximum on it,
Or a maximum?
if, like, best estimate plus a bit of, is $10,000 or $15,000, like, it's nowhere near what the $20,000 that we've just given, but I think we need to have some of that
Through you,
dollar
Madam Chair, I
value.
can't see it costing any more than $5,000.
Well, if the other councillors are happy to put a maximum of, or up to $6,000, then, and as long as the budget allows for.
So Chair, there is the water mains budget that we've got in capital space, which is unallocated currently for projects, so both those projects would come into that fund.
And again, do we change that to supplying to the boundary?
Yep.
Similar to the previous resolution.
So would you like to, sorry, councillor Plum, do you have anything to say about
So there will be a water meter put on there, so that is the cost of us or the cost of the jockey club.
Through you,
Is
Madam
that
Chair,
as well?
normally, when we do a water request connection, or a water connection, connection request, the cost goes to the client.
But again, through you, Madam Deputy Chair, if we were to combine those costs, like with the cost of the water meter to the boundary,
Yep.
and if it's $6,000, then I'm more than happy with that. Like I said, I'm supportive of it in general, it's just to clarify in the resolution where we're going to and how much we're more than happy to spend.
Through the chair, sorry, Kerry, what size pot, would it be the same as what you'd do for Jericho 63? Which again makes it cheaper. Yeah.
I agree with it as well, just for the fact that I just think that if we can use non-potable water instead of our treated water, and it goes right past the race courses, just common sense to use that water. But would you like to move, Councillor Arthur, that move the recommendation with a cost of $6,000 on it?
Yeah, if we can just clarify that we're happy to supply the meter and works to the boundary to a maximum, if it's 6,500 or at best estimate at this stage, and then the assumption is that everything inside the property boundary is on the jockey. Yep.
No cost. Kerry, are you happy with that amount? You think we'll get in underneath that amount?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So say 6,500, value of 6,500.
The cost of upkeep,
runs through
if you bit of scope,
boundary to value of 6,500.
Value up to.
value up to.
Value. Okay. Is everyone happy with that motion? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Hanson, you're happy with that? Councillor Plum? We'll go to, is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur, you?
I'm happy to move.
Councillor Gleeson seconds that. All in favour? Carried.
5. You want me to back in or just running
I'll
around
leave
this?
you now.
Madam Chair, can I just add the record statement, I declared a declarable conflict of interest, probably being a bit overcautious, but I don't need conflict of interest in the last month of the term.
I thought you were going to come in and tell us how hot it is outside.
Well, I went outside and come back.
Thank you. Agenda item 327. Nick.
Sorry, one moment. I have another report here. It doesn't seem to have made the agenda, and that's for the request for assistance from Alpha Learn to Swim for their drowning prevention.
Have to be next month.
Okay, so the budget review 2. So I bring the report to you today. We've had a quite a condensed budget review of what we've undertaken this time around, but we did undertake a review of both the operational expenditure and revenue, along with and then also the capital projects as well. We've had a review just to make sure that all those are on track at this point in time. So Council adopted the annual budget in June last year. There was a subsequent amendment to that budget which Council approved in November. So the numbers in this report are looking to compare budget review 1 with what we're amending the budget to be in budget review 2. If we go through the operational just at the high level, and then we'll get down to the detail of where some of those changes are when we go through the individual cost centre report, I suppose. So in the revenue space, before I do that, I suppose the overall outcome of what we're proposing, officers are recommending, is no overall change to the current surplus of $32,051 that we adopted in November. So the changes that we've made are largely moving expenditure and revenue around to fund shortfalls where we see there's going to be shortfalls, but then where we've funded that from savings we've found in other parts of the organisation. So So we'll go through some of those now. So in the revenue space, major adjustment in goal 1 related to the consolidation of the budgets relating to council housing. So we talked about this in budget review 1. As part of this budget review, we've consolidated all the housing cost centres into one council housing portfolio, which sits in goal 5 at the moment. So that has seen that reduction in revenue there in the budget has really then been reflected as an increase in revenue in the governance goal. Also, officers have applied some revised estimates to our rates, fees and charges in goal 2. So in rates for the water and sewage particularly, there was certainly some expectation that based on what we were levied in the first half year, we should be levying that again, so we've been able to increase, have a small increase to goal 1's. The water and sewage rates that we're looking to collect. So the goal 3, the transport, we've had to allocate some revenue for state roads contracts. So most of the state roads contracts concluded 30 June last year, but there was some additional work that was to be undertaken on the Cap Highway particularly, and we didn't have any budget allocated for this year for revenue or expenditure. We've subsequently spent about 700,000, which is also then going to be reflected in the revenue side as well. In economy, there was an increase to fees and charges collected at our campgrounds, so some positive results there. Aramac is certainly leading the charge there with, I suppose, an increase if you look at what it's collected in previous years. So Aramac is winning that race. Also, our dip yards fees are looking very positive as well. Had a couple of decent herds come through there this year. So particularly with that one, we haven't just doubled what we've collected revenue, but we've reassessed, I suppose, a conservative number that we feel that we can achieve this year in this half year. And goal 5, the major revenue change was around our federal assistance grant. We did take quite a conservative approach in the previous budget review, but to, I suppose, maintain our surplus at the value it was, we've done our numbers to make sure that we're getting what we expect we'll be getting out of that federal assistance grant, and also our interest. I think we had a $600,000 interest. We budgeted $600,000 for the year. We're now forecasting $810,000 based on our current projections. So we're up to 31 December. We raised $449,000 interest revenue, which is really good for our investments. On the expenditure side, just in the table there, that is a typo saying adopted budget. It should say BR1 budget review as that first column of numbers. So the major adjustment in goal 1, as I mentioned, was the council housing consolidation. Also, we identified a few items for savings. We did make some adjustments to, I think it was parks and gardens and showgrounds. Both those have seen a bit of an increase in their individual line items in those areas. Council's commercial services are trending costs slightly lower than budgeted, and we've adjusted that to reflect our revised expectations. And also our cost of insurance of the plant was lower than we expected, but is offset by, I suppose, a higher than expected public liability. So I think that was just maybe the breakup of how we had those in the previous budget. Goal 3, I mentioned the Cap Highway works on the state roads contracts. Probably noting that there is some quite high numbers in our, particularly our road maintenance. It's very close to expending the full budget. At the moment, I understand all the roads crews are on flood damage, so that number should level out quite substantially over the next couple of months. But we'll review that again in budget review 3. The economy, the expenses change in the economy goal was some increased expenditure in tourism, but that's been offset by us being able to reduce what our projected town planning costs are going to be. In governance, been some changes around our employee expenses. A lot of the employee expenses last year were purely based on costs from the previous year and then projected out. Given that we filled a number of vacant roles, some of those, both the expenditure on employee costs and recoveries on costs are varying from what we expected, and that has been adjusted as well in proposed figures. I'm not sure, did the table of all the different line items for the operational budget come through in the agenda?
No.
That's the capital one, Mr Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
That one there.
Operational.
I can distribute that, councillors, which shows the individual line items that have been adjusted.
A few pages.
Yeah, it's about 15 pages. Any questions on the operational? Or I can talk to a bit more detail if you'd like.
So,
Yes, Councillor Rogers, you won that race.
Dan, did we make any amendments for the Willow Street roadworks and Fox Street roadworks?
That's in the capital space. I haven't got to that yet, but to answer that question, we haven't made any adjustments to those numbers at this point in time. In both those cases, we do have some funds that are unallocated currently in the R2R budget, so which is basically, given that we've got to have that done by 30 June, it's a use it or lose it sort of situation. The other thing that I know Works are considering is maybe a change of scope and not doing all of it this year potentially, if the budget doesn't allow as well. So still some decisions to be made in that space.
Do we need to, we need to do the Willow Street before the 30th of June?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And Box Street is tied to TIDS funding as well, so.
Which also has to be spent before 30 June.
So what did you mean by spacing it out?
If it runs over, we'll spend the money we've got before the 30th of June, and then if there's additional works, we'll do it in the next year. If we need to save the budget flowing out.
Budget it ourselves, or like we still get covered
Well, we'll have TIDS and R2R next year as well.
as well?
Yeah. R2R being doubled. We've actually got double
Yeah.
money to spend in the same period of time.
Just the time.
We could either, I think that's what Dean and Kerry are suggesting, we could either amend the budget to do it all in this year, or we can do the works in each location that we've got the funds to do this year and then complete the works in the following year if that's what is required. Whichever option council feels and officers feel they can get done. Yeah, either way, the money that we have in the budget will have to be spent by the 30th of June. Whether that completes the scope of works or not is up to whether we allocate the additional money
Yeah.
to allow it to happen. But that's, yeah, you're right, that's capital. We'll do that, isn't it?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, yes, Councillor.
Are we budget review tomorrow, or is that, we've got something else?
Yes. I thought that was what we were going to go line by line with the capital stuff tomorrow.
Okay, we can.
Yes.
I had that in this report.
It's there, but I did note it was there. It was whether you wanted to go to that, whether council wanted to go, well, I'm happy to do it today and save some time tomorrow if that's what's required, because I've got LDMG stuff that will back me up all day tomorrow. But yeah, initially when we set our calendar, it was that we would receive and do the general meeting today. We switched yesterday for tomorrow because both Dan and I were unavailable yesterday. And then we could do more detail of the capital works tomorrow, like individual project status report, like literally, but it is written there, so we can go through it now, considering that the agenda is half finished.
If there's something you're looking at, we can workshop tomorrow.
If you need more detail, that's right.
What else is on tomorrow, Mr Mayor?
I think that was the gist of it, pretty much, was budget.
Just do it today.
Did anyone have any more questions for Dan regarding the operational stuff? Let's go back on what the question at hand is. The operational budget amendment that's there on page 454 and 5.
Oh, do you want to go through the capital?
Yeah, we will. We'll go to that in a minute. I'm just staying off. You asked about operational. Has anyone got any questions about that? Do you want clarifying or more detail on? Okay, now we can do capital. So,
sorry, I was just going to ask something more about the operational.
you go with that first, because there is more to do yet that we might have to come back for on We are.
Yeah.
So there is follow-up. One of the reasons the agenda was constrained was because of this other thing, so you go.
In governance, it says there's an increase in employee expenses largely due to positions being vacant at the time of the budget being developed. So when we budget, we don't we budget for the, we just budget for, we don't budget for the vacant positions. When we do our budget, we're not budgeting for any of those vacant positions.
This year we did not know.
So you're carrying forward last year workforce figure?
Yeah, so when we budgeted, we had a number of vacant positions, so I just based it on what the employee costs were for the year, and then that's how we've extrapolated it out. Knowing that there's going to be additional vacant positions, but also we're going to fill some. There was some fat built in, like from recall, it was about a 4.5% increase based on EBA, and I think I put in 5, so we did have some allowance there. As we develop and I suppose get some better systems in place, we'll be able to get down to position-based budgeting for our employee expenses. At that point, you start taking into consideration all the positions vacant now. We're not expecting to fill it until September, so we would fund that for 3/4 of the year as opposed to the full year, sort of things like that. But for this budget, no, I did not do that level of detail with the employee expenses.
Is there any other questions about the operational amendments that handle? We'll move on to capital. Let's move on, Dan, to capital.
Thank you. So in the capital space, so we're kind of combining the capital budget review with the project progress report in this report. So we've gone through a number of the projects at the moment, all the projects at the moment, and reviewed their expected start and completion dates. There's a few that we haven't adjusted any budget lines yet, and there is various reasons for that in some cases. We are working through, if I start with the carry forward projects, the capital projects, we can have a look at some of at where they're all at the moment. So the carry forward for the chambers here, the sound and lighting, sound and video equipment. We're planning that at the moment. We're doing some design work and going to get some quotes to do a reset up and review of this room, which will should improve what we're looking to achieve with that budget line. The swimming pool upgrade at Barcaldine is progressing. We pushed it out to 30 June. There's some elements of that that I believe we're waiting to the end of the swimming year so that we can deliver that in the last quarter. Showgrounds, Barcaldine Showgrounds has been completed, come in under budget. There are just some commitments there to be tidied up. The Alpha Showgrounds and lighting and sound, the sound element of that is currently out to procurement, and we're looking to have someone complete that, as well as the lights is also out to procurement, and both those will look to be completed by the end of March. And then at that point, once we get those prices back, we'll assess what money is left over in that project, which will complete that LRCIP 3 project. The Jericho Showgrounds men's shed upgrade there. There was doing that project, there were some additional elements that were tapped into that project, which saw it run over budget, particularly around the electricity and the water supply. There was some additional costs there that weren't factored into the initial scope. It would appear that's how come that project's run over. The Aramac Showgrounds parking is in progress at the moment. Nearing completion, or is it completed now? Completed now? Not completed yet. It's in progress right now though. The rec park at Muttaburra, the toilet block there has been completed. It did run over budget, but I believe there was a change of scope to that last year that council adopted. And the priority flood cameras is one project that is not proceeding at this point.
Excuse me. Thank you. The ones with the LRCIP money that have been overspent, that money comes from, it's still got to come out of LECR, those funding, it can't come from council.
That additional funding can come from council, yes, but what we will look to do is where there's been some savings, so for example, if the Alpha Showgrounds is going to run slightly under budget, well, we would look to use that additional money to fund the overspend in some of the other budgets.
Yeah, so you try to use the LRCIP money. You feel like it's the Muttaburra's $43,000 over, but we're hoping that we'll be able to pick up that money elsewhere.
That's correct.
Through that funding. Why would they? 40. It was only a budget of this for 73 at Muttaburra and $40,000 over budget. What hiccups were there?
It was 2 buckets of money. This bucket's only showing 1 bucket. It was actually 2 buckets of money, and that's why it's looking like it's going over, because there's only 1 bucket of money showing in there on the screen. The other bucket was in the previous year.
How big was the other bucket?
I don't need to know more.
48,000 obviously. That's the biggest.
Okay, thank you.
And through you, Deputy Mayor, the flood cameras, the not proceeding, is that from us, from the QRA or TMR or?
It was a project that's been I suppose it's been on the books for a couple of years. We did get an extension in July out to the 31st of December. And part of it is because we were using TMR money as well, and TMR, so I believe our contribution was, I think it was 50 grand was our contribution, 50 grand from Main Roads and 100 grand from QRA, making up that $200,000 program. 10 cameras was 5 on council roads, 5 on state roads, and because it had been around for so long, we really needed to confirm with TMR if they were willing to still fund that project. And then sort of at the changeover, it did fall off the radar, and I suppose there just wasn't enough time for us to get that project delivered by 31st of December. And QRA is not extending that money beyond the 31st of December.
Well, we will be readdressing it, chasing more funding for it later on.
So there could be an opportunity in the future to get that back.
Yeah, we'll sort of wait. Councils have went to the LGQ conference. Government is using the AI cameras for flood damage and everything else. There's doing a pilot study, which looks like a really good option. So we'll wait till that finishes. It's a fraction of the price we'll use.
The cameras are on crossings, and that was sort of outside of our ability to access potentially during a flood event. So a couple of the crossings were fair way up, like Eastmere Road, for example, where it might be cut off earlier, but at least we can see what was happening at the other end of the road where we can't access during a flood event. Or it was a fair way away from the council office or from where our staff are, so being able to access those in more remote areas.
Just discussing capital.
Go on to?
We'll just finish, Carl.
So the water mains, we don't have any specific items there other than those 2 projects that were discussed earlier in the meeting today. Also, there was a sewer main up at Aramac that was laid in relation to the housing up there. So a proposal for that to be funded from the water mains. Now it's different between water and sewage, but that is where we had some budget there unallocated. Also possibly with some of the projects like Box Street, the school, concrete, there's some opportunity there to potentially, that way that water mains allocation will get used to replace the water mains in those areas. Coach Street bore, I believe is complete. Just a few things to tick off there, which is, I suppose, the end of a long running project. The solar panels in Acacia Street, I believe is being undertaken this half year. SCADA and telemetry, there's a couple of projects relating to that, largely complete. There's just a few items that need to be rounded out, and I suppose some reconfiguration even in some spaces just to tidy that up to complete that project. The sewage treatment plant, council, as you're aware, have been working through a number of challenges in that project, but really looking to try and get, I suppose, the stage that we get it to a stage where it's operational. We're satisfied with the work now, so then we can scope out what we need to do to get it to where we need it to be as a further project, which will come back to council, the next council for consideration. The landfill site in Aramac is complete, slightly over budget there, $500, but that has been completed. The plant replacement program for 22-23 is largely complete. Some of that committed cost is for some of the items still to come in. I do note that the $347,000 over will likely be reduced. The budget that we operated for the 22-23 budget really worked on a net cost of the product, of whatever plant item we were purchasing. So $500,000 grader and a $200,000 sale of the old one. Was put in the budget as $300,000, for example. So while we have purchased some items and they've arrived, we just haven't sold off or auctioned off the item that it's replacing yet, which will, I suppose, reduce that $347,000. That's, I suppose, showing as a variance over at the moment. But we believe we'll come in fairly close to on the budget with that program. Obviously, anticipating some of the costs of the of what we will get for that those sale items. Questions on those? For goal 3, the carry forward items there. A number of the items here are progressed to a stage where they're largely complete, just awaiting a final seal, which will happen probably towards the end of March, even April, when it's a bit cooler. So Aramac, Jericho Road, Navathong and Craven Road are all in that situation. And then we have the floodways at Stagnant Road are currently in planning phase. Box Street is final stages of design, as I understand, and our rural addressing signs. We did have a little bit of funds left, so, and I understand there's a couple of roads that were just getting ticked, that we've added some additional signs to complete that project, so that'll be largely completed in the next couple of months as well. Any questions?
Before we go on, we had a regional figure there for look at town streets and what have you when we were doing the budget.
So these items, Mr. Councillor, are related to the carry forward projects, only the carry forward ones from last year. The budget items, we'll get to those ones for the current year projects. Thank you.
2 pages over, Council.
The goal 4, the carry forward is the dip yards. So the initial part of the project for the 50,000 did see part of that money being allocated to the agitator for the dip, but the compressor and that, I believe we worked out a solution there that we didn't need to expend. So with the remaining funds, there was some adjustments to the yard configuration. I think around the calf brush, from my understanding, that we believe we can deliver for that remaining $12,000 in that project, which is expected to kick off in Q4. But I suppose following that, it's sort of going to be, if we haven't got it completed by June 30, that'll sort of be it for that project, given that there's a carryover. The contribution for the BRES, we're still finalising the contract negotiations there, I understand, and once that's complete, that will be expended. So I haven't put a completion date on that yet, because that could be the next month, it could be.
It's actually not the contract negotiations, Council, as we're simply awaiting the approval of Treasury to purchase land. We're just waiting for the state.
Yeah. Which could be next week.
Could be today.
Yep.
No, actually, it won't be this week. The earliest it could be is next week.
The Alpha Gates, that project has been completed. A slight overrun there with that W4Q money. We did have some savings in some of the other W4Q projects, so that will should not be an issue there for us to do an amendment of the allocation of the project funding there. I think purely it was the numbers that were quoted to do the project a couple of years ago. We've just run over slightly with cost increases over time. Public rest areas, the sculpture trail is in progress and due for completion later this financial year. In Goal 5, the office upgrades. At this stage, we aren't really planning too many significant renovations to the office in this half year. We are looking at some options around at our depots to see whether there's anything that needs to be done there, but largely we believe that a lot of the renovations we'll revisit with the next council. The council housing special maintenance, there's that, and also the additional renewals that are in the current year budget as well. I did note in the operational report that there's a few items there that are capital works have gone operational. So council housing budget for operational looks like it's running fairly close to the wind, if not over budget. But some of that does need to be transferred across to be into capital, which is in progress at the moment, reviewing that expenditure. We're probably undersubscribed there a little bit, so the district managers in the next couple of weeks will be reviewing those projects to see what else needs to be or could be done this year, given that a large number of the projects that they had flagged have been able to be completed under operational funding. So, goal 1 for the capital works for the current year, if we go back to there, the stage 3 of the Barkey Rec Park, that'll kick off in the next next month or so. We are looking to try and get that completed before 30 June. With the master plans progressed to a stage, we feel that there is an opportunity now to start to deliver what was in that stage 3 grant, knowing that there seems to be some consensus on a few things in that master plan. The Alpha Showgrounds lighting renewal, as I mentioned earlier, is currently out to quote. The Aramac Town Hall bathroom is in planning and expected to be completed in the back half of this half year. The goods shed at the refurb here has been completed, but it did run over budget. I understand that during that work there was some additional issues with the integrity of some of the walls in the facility, so that scope crept a bit more than expected for that project. The pool here at Barcaldine, the barbecue tables and canteen renewal is currently in the procurement phase. I think a couple of them have been awarded. The tables and chairs, I believe, have been awarded already, just waiting the work to be undertaken. The showgrounds fence is in the planning phase of what will be delivered for that value. And the Jericho showgrounds facilities renewal is in a similar sort of space, doing some engagement with the local user groups. The Memorial Anzac Park is in the procurement phase for getting some work done to complete that over at Alpha. And the Alpha Cemetery fence, while it has been awarded, we're just awaiting the contractor to commence actually delivering that job. The RSL Memorial at the cemetery here in Barcaldine is just looking at some design options with the gate or the entryway. In the council equipment replacement program, the Alpha Showgrounds pump replacement is currently out to 10th vendor panel, as I understand it, but a number of the other items have already been completed. So the Aramac pool cleaner, Barcaldine pool cleaner, cemetery shoring equipment, and the TV replacement equipment has also been completed, all coming in just under budget. So that is a relatively good outcome there. And then the caravan camping sites, to differentiate from those previous ones that were in the carry forwards. Can't remember which way they were around. I think these are the concrete slabs. The ones previously were just the, I suppose, grading and putting some material in to make them a bit more all-weather options. Was the previous ones. Any questions on those? In the water capital works budget for current year, the generator for the Alpha water treatment plant is there. It's currently working through some options of what that looks like going forward. The Jericho water treatment plant renewal will now kick off. I believe we've got our water and sewage coordinator has commenced. Starts Monday, and these will be the projects that that officer will pick up upon their arrival. Sewer manhole relining, we're currently reviewing that project. The Rapid Water Sewage Alliance was looking to go out as a regional tender for that project. Unfortunately, Longreach was the only other council that showed interest in doing that this year, and they're not quite ready to go to tender just yet. So we're ahead of the curve, I guess.
And there's a third council, I think it's Winton, that said they'll be ready to go next year. So I think that the thinking, the strategic group, I don't know what the tech officers said, but the strategic group might be, if we wait till next year, we will get better bang for buck with 3 councils all in close proximity all going together. So that 96 may hold up.
I'm reliably informed that it's not actually relining manholes, it's more planting.
Yeah, it's a 3, Mr. Chair. It's a magnesium oxide spray. It works out about $1,500 a year.
The sewer main relining is currently under procurement with Rapid, I think. I think that's where it's at. I think the tender's been issued. I haven't seen minutes for the last couple of meetings, but I don't think it's been awarded. Plant replacement for the current year program has commenced. A large number of items have been ordered already. Similar sort of scenario there with the numbers showing while we are slightly under budget, there's still a number of items to be ordered, working through. Recall the resolution by council did see a couple of our vehicles being potentially upgraded where there was a fit for purpose option. So a 2-wheel plumber's ute being upgraded to a small truck, for example. Given some of the changes and some of the savings, talking with the fleet coordinator, we should be able to deliver that within budget. So that's a good outcome, I believe. Also in that space, the workshop presses, on the press, the vehicle hoist and the safety cages all arrived with a really, really minor, I suppose, overrun there on the safety cage. On the transport goal, rural roads and town streets. So the cross-loading facility at Alpha is about, or has gone to tender. About to go to tender.
We've also added in there a wider door, 5 foot, to add an option to sizes.
Excuse me, is that facility, if you don't mind through the chair, is that facility getting pre-built away, is it?
Well, we'll wait to see which successful tender it gets us, but that's right, like someone might put in a tender to build it on site. It's up to the tenderer how they want to do it. The one particular company that I'm aware of that builds these en masse, they build them, transport them and then construct them on site. Yeah.
So you've got the option delivery or design construct build.
But a local tenderer might decide, like he can put his hand up, design. See, the technical element is the design of it is owned, the copyright for the one in particular is owned by a particular company and they have patented it. So another one would require evaluation of the two versus each other.
Engineering design, the whole lot.
And you'd be aware of the one company that I'm talking about in particular, and those ones are on site. So yes, they come, they do the footings, that's refurb, basically. Thank you.
The Craven Road seal, if you recall, relates to the Craven Road sealing project that was in the carry forwards. That was some additional funding required to complete that project, which is funded through TIDS. So that's just waiting that final seal, which is looking at the in the end of March or even April. Just locking in a date with the supplier there. School pickup upgrade is looking at some planning as well. The bit of work to do is to get that one probably completed this financial year.
Just on that Craven Road ceiling, if I can go back one, it's got it as actual cost at 100,000, but that would really be more like a committed cost, wouldn't it? Because the work's not underway there.
There was 100 tins, just guaranteed.
It's TIDS.
Yeah, but my point is there's 100 in the budget and then we've got it that it's actual is 100, but we haven't yet delivered to know that it's actual is 100 yet, have we? Because it's saying 100% action, even though we know it at the start, that'd be just a...
I think we've allocated, I think that would show that we've used that 100,000 from this year, but we've still got 187,000 over that. Over 200,000 left in the
Okay, we did use the 100,000 that we allocated in this year's budget when we did the initial seal, and now the final seal will be funded from the carry forward. So you effectively that Craven Road seal job's complete. That 100,000 of it is complete, but there'll be no more applied to that item.
Yes, that's
the
right.
rest of it will be
I
the carry
suppose
forward.
overall the Craven Road sealing job is not complete.
I understand why it's not coloured because the whole job's not done, but there won't be any more cost to that line.
Yes.
It'll be cost into the carry forward. All right, thank you. Sorry, who was about to ask about the school?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The school pickup upgrade here.
That's the state school. It's just where the pickup and drop off point is from the school gate to the corner. Is just getting a concrete slab put in between the footpath and the curb.
Kerry might be able to there's some complexities with it.
There's a bit of complexity with that job, and because there's a water main under that section of footpath. We want to move that water main before we complete that job. That's why it wasn't done on the last school holidays.
So you'll do it on the next school holiday, hopefully.
Yep, that was no, next part of the question was the timing. So, yeah.
The job's been planned and costed, but we've got to move that water main. Even if we only move that section and complete the water main later on, we'll get that done because it's got to be done by the 30th of June.
Very good.
Under the TIDS program.
Thank you.
Regional floodways upgrade program. So the Dunbar Road, the Sunday Creek crossing there at Jericho is currently just getting the design checked so that that project can be delivered. The same goes with the Stagmount Road floodways. And the gravel road crossings, I understand, are just being identified now. Oh, more than that, I believe they've been identified, and delivery on those will start shortly as well. Yep.
Just for a little bit of clarity, so that if anybody's looking at it, the Stagmount Road's not at Marlborough, Stagmount Road's at Arrowmount.
Okay.
Yep, if you don't mind, just in case somebody's looking at it one day and thinks that we really don't know where we are.
Just on the outskirts of Marlborough. On the outskirts of Marlborough.
Stardowns Road is just going through, I suppose we're in the design phase for that at the moment. We received, I suppose, approval from LRCIP towards the end of last year, but we'll get into the design now. I suppose that's just confirming the centre line as well as checking the curves and things like that. So that will be completed shortly so that work can commence particularly in Q4.
Question D for Kerry, is that in your forward works, are you envisaging that will be undertaken by council staff or contract? Or will it be, there probably always going to be a contractor on it, but is it going to be predominantly council staff? Is that your thinking?
Possibly. At this point in time, it'll be a combination, as you said.
Yeah, it'll be a water truck or a roll or something.
That is one project being LRCIP 4. It doesn't need to be done by June 30, but obviously we have additional projects that we'll be putting forward for next year, so getting it ticked off this year will be something to go. The Town Street 3 seals, this is the tender council awarded, maybe it was October last year. That work is due to be completed by the end of April. The Box Street curb and channel, as I mentioned, that's the additional funding for that project that we talked about earlier, that's going through the design phase. Willow Street, curb and channel, we've mentioned that already, just the design's ready to go, we'll start that work, we're just looking at the scope and the cost of what we do there. In Gordon Street rehab, similar sort of situation. The Booker Street pathway, contract has been awarded there. We do expect that project probably to run over at this point in time. I believe it's 118,000 is the contract, so we will we'll have to manage that with our LRCIP4 funding. And the Porter Street path was completed in school term 3, school holidays last year. And as I mentioned, the council housing project is some additional funding for this year, just looking at getting some of the capital work out of the operational expenditure to bring that across. We should have that rectified next meeting for updating. The IT equipment replacement program, we've got sort of the first trench of work of that completed with new laptops and screens and etc. rolled out. But we'll, now that we've got the new IT system in place, we'll revert back. A small IT team of one will revert back to looking to continue the rollout of updated equipment for our staff. So that's all on capital works, probably just some of the operational special projects now.
If you go back to transport though, when I look at oh no, sorry, you're right, keep going, I'll talk about that.
So special projects, which are, I suppose, operating in nature, and just I suppose we wanted to pull out and sort of show how we're progressing with those. The school awards night is completed. I'm not saying that one of the schools missed out, I just think that it probably just ended up in a different budget line. I haven't done the research to work out which one it was. The Jericho sprinkler system, that's sort of, I believe that's being worked on at the moment. The current sprinkler system that's there, it's just getting it repaired and up and running again. The rec park drainage will be undertaken in the next couple of months to get that resolved. We did have some other drainage works that was an issue there in November, which was separate to this that was undertaken, but we'll look to get onto this particular, addressing, I suppose, more of the issue now as opposed to just addressing the problem overall a bit better now rather than just dealing with that individual issue. The master plans, so they're out for community consultation for the first cut of the full plan. That feedback's supposed to close in the next week or so, or is just closed, I can't recall. But we'll review that, give that feedback back to the architects, and they'll come back with Trench 2 for us to have a look at, and we'll review where we're at that point in time. The Alpha Showgrounds maintenance, that is procurement materials are being purchased for that now. That was just related to the bottom rail around the Showgrounds arena and a number of places that's rusted from the water. The sprinkler systems there.
Are we procuring just the labour, just the materials, both? What are we procuring?
I think it's the materials they're procuring at the moment. The delivery may be contractor as well, because it might tie in with the dip yards works that they're looking to do there to finish that off.
So because I fuel my car up in the Alpha Depot, I can't help but see this because it's stuck against the outside fence. There's about 8, maybe 10 slings of oval rail already in our depot. Is that probably earmarked for something? It is. That's for the remainder of the job of dip yards?
Yes.
Right. Very good.
I believe.
Well, we'll now that you've said that to make sure that they don't.
Given that's from 2 different teams, I believe both those officers are working together to get some benefit, economies of scale from water.
Well, could I suggest, whoever they are, that they reach out to probably the 2 showground user groups at Alpha as well that predominantly need arena fencing, and that's the Alpha Show Society and the Alpha Rodeo Association, because they may also, like in discussions we had at the last showground users meeting, if there was works that council was undertaking, they could contribute to it as well and help lower once again the contract cost to install. So there's some work that would be removed from what council would need to fund that they may fund materials and labour for. So if we were to build one bulk job there, it could be mutually beneficial for all facility users and council's own costings there. So I know both of them groups are very keen to progress a little bit of work. And they said if council was doing a bit, they'd just pay for the materials and the labour for their component of it, to use a local contractor as opposed to volunteer labour.
Flood action studies, there has, I suppose it's in the stage of procurement at the moment to determine, I suppose, the lead consultant on that for the flood study. And we'll go from there. That one? Oh, got a typo in that, should be 30th June 2024, not 2023. It's a little while ago.
Excuse me, through you, Mr Mayor, just clarify that for me again, the flood study and action plan.
Yep.
That's correct.
I was just going to go, so the flood study is there, it's funded by QRA, so the money we will undertake a flood study in Aramac, Alpha and Jericho, and then part of that action from that, there's a community consultation element, which then does a bit of work around an action plan with the community. It's about building resilience is the key goal of what the project is about, building community resilience. So there's certain groups and certain, when things happen, who will take action within the community. So it's not just council trying to deliver all the emergency services, the community's actually taking some ownership of looking after themselves in some aspects.
I guess it's disaster management focus, so if there's a flooding event, take all the information they've got, see where there's new information to bring in, and then identify the safe places in our communities.
When we first received notification we were eligible for it, we had hoped, if you go way back to when we were in planning scheme consultation, we'd hoped that it could have been the funding for a detailed flood study, but it's a resilience study. How to be better to accommodate, I'm not going to repeat what Dan just said, all of what he said, not what we had hoped that it could have done in detailed, because it's a substantial sum of money, as you can see. It would have been very good if it could have helped assist with a detailed flood study and analysis that may have been able to then supersede the state's natural hazard overlays for flooding in each of our communities. Unfortunately, it's not. That's not an eligible component of the funding. I'm not saying it's a waste of money, but it's
May trigger a discussion.
May lead to unlocking out of another bucket of money somewhere down the track.
Yeah.
If it uncovers that the community may not be as resilient as it needs, and it therefore needs to better understand how exposed it is to flooding and do a more detailed type 3 analysis. It's the kind of way consultants and experts make all their money, let's do a report about a report and then we'll do another. Oh, shut up, I'm just going to get yourself in trouble in your second last meeting. Keep going. But it's true.
In the special operating projects for water, the Jericho Water Treatment Plant Maintenance Program is looking to commence in the next couple of weeks, or next couple of months. The work there needs quite a detailed plan because part of that project is actually needing the water treatment plant offline. So the water supply for the town needs to be managed and things like that through that. So there is a bit of work to put that project together. Our scaring of water mains has been completed and ran only slightly over budget. The reservoir clean out was supposed to be partially completed prior to Christmas. There was some delays that was a rapid project, so there was some delays at Licensford or somewhere prior to Christmas that wasn't expected, and in the end they didn't get here. So I don't think we've heard from the supplier or from Rapid when we expect that will be completed at this point in time to get a revised update. So I've just put the date of completion expected to be 30 June at the moment until we get some better information. The Aramac sewage treatment plant design is currently working through, I got procurement there, so that is someone that needs to be completed shortly. The in-off tap replacement at Aramac is in the procurement phase as well.
3 Mr. Mayor, it's not a tap, it's a tank.
Tank. Right. The
It's a deer tap, mate. You want to be able to think for itself. But I'm pleased someone corrected me because I was really looking at that and that's a deer tap. Anyway, let's go.
the pump well vac and clean out is not commenced at this point in time. The fuel monitoring system, I'll put my hand up there. I thought the fleet coordinator was looking after it, the fleet coordinator thought I was looking after it, and you're not looking after it, so I'll get onto that and should have the tender out for that by the end of February. The flood damage work, there I've updated, for some reason, I don't know where we got the budget numbers that were in there, but they weren't the correct ones. I've corrected the numbers as per the budget of what we have, as well as I've then reviewed that against what has been approved by QRA, and we're relatively close in that there. Noting that the budget numbers that we have included in there are not the total cost that QRA has approved us for funding. If we use that, we'd be looking at around $60+ million in flood damage approval. But that total cost that QRA approves you for includes project management, escalation cost, and also contingency, which history suggests we don't get near very often. So that has been updated to reflect that. I do note in the most recent couple of weeks we have had some we have given some updated estimates on the Texas Road and the Aramac Jericho Road claims submissions, and those costs have been reflected in here, getting a lot closer to where we expect projects to finish up overall. The ATM at Jericho, we're still seeking some alternatives there. We got some advice towards the end of last year that the company we'd agreed to go with have since withdrawn from that, so we're looking at some options there, potentially even purchasing our own ATM, like a second-hand ATM, and self-funding. We're just doing some checks through the insurer at the moment to see what impact that is, because obviously we'll have to insure it. And being not quite a core business, it is probably, they've got some things they're working through themselves. Over in the administrative space, yep.
3 Mr. Mayor, that ATM comes up in the district manager's report as well, but as soon as you just mentioned it, if we go ahead, we own, the Buckhorn Regional Council owned and fund and get a percentage of the takings. Is that how that works? Do the council make a slight profit out of that?
If we owned it, yes, there is more potential for us to make some funds out of that.
Recover costs would be the way I'd put it, councillor. I wouldn't say it's recover.
I don't think we'd be covering costs.
Recover the power costs, not make money out of cover.
So the lease, if we're leasing an item, there was opportunity for us to have some income coming in there as well, obviously based on the number of transactions that were coming through the machines. So, but I suppose there's a few things to work through with us taking on that risk. Is if we're filling cash, how that cash is getting refilled, how much cash you have in the machine, those sort of things. We're paying someone to look. We're going to pay someone to look after that risk and those questions for us. So I suppose now we're going through that process ourselves to see how we might do that.
Through the chair, I have some additional information that I'll present tomorrow.
Or this afternoon if tomorrow doesn't happen, which
Yes.
could not now. Yeah, there's a few options there that could expand on that information, but we'll do that out. Okay, thank you.
And I do think we've investigated this a long time ago too, and there was a fair bit of insurance issue with the travelling of the cash to refill and bring back.
The options we're looking at don't involve council staff doing that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll leave that until tomorrow.
It'll be registered company that provides armed guard. Like,
Some of the, so going through the Goal 5 projects, so the enterprise system we talked about earlier today, the apprentices and trainees, so some of those apprentices and trainees have commenced with us in the last couple of weeks. The training and development program was the budget, I suppose the budget project for the policy council adopted in December. We're just working through capturing some of those costs of what some of those training programs we're funding for some of our staff. CCTV is a project maintenance project, was looking at our current camera systems and upgrading those or renewing those where the cameras weren't working or there was other issues with them. So that is kicked off. The managed IT services is partially in there, it's partially spent. The contract has commenced and now will just be an ongoing cost. It has come in, I suppose, slightly cheaper than we expected. The cost is relatively similar to the previous contract, which is good. So that is a win for us. At the moment, some of the costs that still to come in will be running the two systems together because we are running the new environment and then we're also running the old environment a little bit, still running like our practical system and whatnot in the old environment. So that is still a cost that will be captured in there going forward. But we expect it to remain within budget. The promotional activities, there is a couple of activities that have occurred. They haven't been, we haven't had them itemised out, so we are capturing those now. We'll start capturing those going forward. And the local government elections obviously is coming up. Staff get together costs. So the cost of the entire cost of that day from a materials perspective was slightly higher than that, but that is, I suppose, is the budget, not including the funding we had set aside for those activities in previous years. So that is coming about where we expected, just that $300 additionally. So the report, the recommendation, I'll leave it up to council, but I haven't actually presented to council a operating budget support report. It missed the agenda. So all you've got to go on is those notes I put at the front. So I don't know if you'd like to amend number 1 in that recommendation, because I didn't actually present a amended operational budget support.
no, we can't receive something we don't have, but we can authorise changes to the budget.
Yeah, so you could say something like receive the amended operational budget
summary. Well, it's the budget itself because the headline figure then flows down, so yeah.
Contained in the report.
And then the project progress summary, which we've just gone through in detail, is attached. I just want to go back to one area here though, and that's, sorry, before we get to the resolution, and that's and other councillors may as well, the flood damage. None of our contractors, or even, all I want to get into is, but your words were we never get close to ridiculously accurate because we never get close to them anyway. Even if we do all the work, we still don't spend all the money. But is there any way we can wind back some of it? Like, can we take 20% off it to try and reflect the reality of what we're going to deliver?
It added to that, Mr Mayor, because that stuff's got completion in June next year, so if we know stuff's not going to happen this financial year, why do we have it? I think we've still got a lot of work to do in our presentation of these project reports because there's still dates and that in there. Like the school pickup, we've got for, what's that, goal 3,
In January.
31st of January, that's 8 days anyway, and we've just spoken that we're not going to touch it until next.
That there though, I guess it's good because it shows that there's an overrun, like it flags for us that it's not happening on time, but then we get the reason why, so I think that's okay. But if we know that there's no chance of 30 June 25 us doing $43.491 million worth of work, Siri, go away.
Yeah, that's the big ticket
What
one,
can we
especially
wind back? Because
projects.
it's the only one that really blows us out. Like, we're not doing that. We can't do that much work even if we had every contractor in the council engaged 7 days a week if we did $43 million worth of work. So is there a way to make that figure more realistic? And even if it's just a wag, but I just see that stands out as glaringly obvious, known from everyone in the room. We know we aren't going to do that, even though that's the value of the work and the time frame to complete it in. Can we, I don't know, 70% of it, even indicative, just as an indicative price? I don't know how you can then justify that fiscally, but I just think it just makes our budget look a little bit.
Through the chair, we haven't budgeted 47 million this year. We've done 50% of that. So it's 23 million is the number we've budgeted.
Sorry, no, I'm looking at the special projects report and it's got 43 million for by the end of 2025. We know that we're not going to spend that between the 1st of July, in some cases last year, in some cases this year, and the 30th of June in all cases next year. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a grossly exorbitant figure. I mean, it's QRA's figure, it's not yours, it's not mine, it's not Kerry's. But we just know that we won't deliver it.
I'm just thinking, but if that's the QRA figure and then we show a figure that we put in here that's showing that we're not going to get anywhere near doing it.
It doesn't mean we're not going to do the work, it just means that we'll do the work for a lot less than the figure that they put on it. We'll get every road done, like we always have. It's just that it doesn't cost a fraction of what QRA costed us. Like, we saw that and we've had that conversation when we did the last tender evaluations.
Yeah.
We got the amount that was allocated to the road versus what the contractor put in for it, and there's daylight between them.
I understand what you're saying, but I still think you keep that figure there in case we do need to go to that value.
Yep, they've still got the figure there, it's not ours. Like, I guess, how do you ever make your budget reality? Whenever you've got such known overs in both revenue and expenditure. I mean, admittedly it is revenue and expenditure, it's money in and money out, and we only ever do whatever we do of it, but we might get 40% of it done and we'll be complete. The project will be 100% complete at 40% of funding. That's the bit that I just can't.
Through the chair, some of the things that we're doing, we've only started this calendar year, is our senior work supervisors are doing a weekly email to Consultant Kerry and also project managers, and providing an update on the reports on the roads they're working on. They finished last week, the roads they're working on this week. So the roads that are completed, we can close off in our report, and therefore if the report's got, let's say, $150,000 allocated for that road, we've spent 75,000, well there's 75,000 we can immediately take off our expected number. So while the 47 is quite large at the moment, it was larger in December because we did have Aramac, Jericho and Texas Road were both up over 4 million. With the adjusted estimates, we brought that back. So I suppose early on, I'll say we're early on, we're 6 months into it, but we're early on in us actually delivering the program. We can start to, I think we could provide, maybe leave the budget number there, but we provide an estimated cost like we do in some other reports potentially.
So, right, that is good. So the budget cost figure comes down. The budget cost figure stays the same, but the actual cost and the variance becomes more solid. Is it possible, if we know, I mean, say in the Aramac Muttaburra area, there's, we know the budget cost, but let's say there's 300 kilometres of roads, let's say there's 800 kilometres of road to reconstruct. as we, in those reports, not only do we, can we, if we could introduce into something here, if not only as we decrease the cost, we can cross off the kilometres as they're done. Because that gives us an idea then, right, well, there's 800 kilometres to reconstruct and 6 causeways. We're halfway through and we've done 600 kilometres and 3 causeways. We're not doing too bad. The figures, we understand, QRA figures will never line up with our figures in terms of what they allocate to what we spend. Okay, we accept that for the purposes that Councillor People suggests. We leave those figures the same, but have a look at the deliverables, the actuals, in terms of we had, you know, so we had 800 kilometres to do over 2 years and we've done 600 and we had 3 causeways to do, or we've had to reseal. I mean, I wonder if that then sitting alongside this shows us the status of the project more accurately, because the funding reduction is retrospective then, correct? So right now I can't see what is in place for the rest of the year. I can see the adjustments that have come down for the work completed year to date, but I don't know to what level we're going to see a reduction for the next year or the next 6 months. So can't expect that overnight, but I wonder if we know through our schedules from QRA what change we have got to reconstruct. And even within that, I don't expect it to be broken down by treatment level. You know, like some of it's just immediate inflammation grade, some of it's material. But even if we just knew some not rough, but whole high level figures, you know, you look at some roads, we don't have much material provided, but you might have the full length of it for a medium formation grade. Well, we get that. I don't know.
We've got to report this, we've got changes. Yeah, you can run rackets across it and a mapping system to show that where it's going.
But even from QRA, when they give us the schedule of works back, they'll tell you how many, what changes works to be treated. And then as the contract goes in, once it's done, well, we can just go, that's off. Just a simple one-liner, one call. Councillor Arthur, what do you think about that?
I think we need to do better, like even Paul had just said before, like the rec grounds, like it's come from 2 buckets of money, but we don't show that. We just show the budget's broken for that line item. We're still under budget generally, but what happens is we blow over on a couple of big ones and then decide to pull out something that's up. The flood cameras, there's $100,000, so we're still in budget, but we've blown the budget because we're only delivering 3/4 of the work. We've got, I think it's $11 million of carryover projects from last year, and we're only probably 10 and 5% complete on this year's budget. But we need to do better, and I think more rigid budget reviews, whether it's month 4 for the first quarter, or whether it needs to be month 5 to allow that first quarter. The first quarter is always a little bit iffy. But that known stuff, like especially that flood damage, like if we know, or whatever project, if it's approved for $20 million, but we know it's only going to be 10, like if we're better at and more frequent at our budget reviews, we should be able to change that 3 times a year to better reflect that. And then if whatever happens, as long as we're still within the approval, like if we need to increase the budget for whatever reason, I think we need to do that through our budget review process. And those projects that have been decided that we're not going to do, then that all needs to go into that budget review. We need to be more rigid around it.
I guess one of the other things that adds a complexity to it is that some of the projects, flood damage is a big one, but LRCI is another one where we are...
The ones that are over 2-3 years.
Yeah. So
we need to be better at showing what we know we're going to do this year, and then what we know is going to go into next year, and then whether it's scope creep or just slide or whatever, how we show that, how we capture it and show it, that we know what's going on.
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to make, in that it's easy to go, oh look, we don't actually have to have that done because the funding doesn't expire until bang, whenever. But if we aren't delivering it, well, we need to reflect that, because we've got to look at what we can deliver and what we have the capacity to deliver. And if we can aim up, well, we need to aim up. And if we need to drop our expectations as a council back when we plan the budget, we need to pull it back. But flood damage is an outlier in that we can't control what QRA give us. And we do control all the spend, that's the outlier where we know that there's this much between. With LIC projects, we control, we get given a limited amount of money, but it's our project, our scope, our costings, our everything, so we're justify that, but we can't go to QRA and go, well, look, you've given us $14 million to do the Aramac Marlborough area flood damage, we'll do it for 7, how about we cut the budget in half? Because the minute we do that, we potentially expose ourselves to then they go, oh, you do it for half, we'll see if we can do it for a quarter. Then we end up bidding all of the pot. All right, where were we at? How we received this adoption and amending the operational budget. Are we adopting those changes though? Or did we do that in the last meeting? I think we did.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I took this as this was like another staff review of
What
an
had
internal
already
review
occurred,
of,
yes.
of budget review one where you've
What's wrong?
tweaked some things.
Yeah, so we've moved some expenditure and revenue around, but the statements that we amended in November are still current based on these changes.
So we need to receive and adopt the amended operational budget summary contained in the report. And we received the project progress summary report. Because there's no amendments in that.
There's no amendments to it.
Only where projects have been completed and they're under or over, but that's not an
That's not the
amendment.
budget.
Further questions? Councillor, please.
Mr Mayor, are we having further discussions on this at a later date? You know, tomorrow's budget meeting is as well?
I'm but happy to have it now if there's a line you want to pull out.
I know we've touched over it, but just to try and get my head around it, how we go back to the first attachment here, 22-23, we've got 48 projects, 48 numbers of projects total, and there was only 19 completed, that was 2 years ago, 22-23. And then in the following year there's 63.
Sorry, you're talking capital or operational? Sorry.
Capital.
Capital, yeah, right, gotcha. Sorry.
Capital, page 58. Page 58 is it there, I think. Yeah, how do we keep our books straight? And how do we keep on functioning? Yeah, how do we keep our books straight when we've got 48 projects and we only delivered 19 in that time, and then 63 and only delivered 9 in the next line?
So through the chair, that 48 is only the carry forward projects, not the projects that were completed last year.
And they're carried forward.
So they're only the ones that weren't completed for last year's budget. So there might have been another 20 or 30 projects that were completed that aren't in that 48, because we didn't carry any of their projects forward because they were completed prior to 30 June.
Thank you. Those 48 projects, 19 of those completed. So 19 or 48 or 30, 20, whatever it is, 31. Does that get added on to the 23-24 page?
They're not included in the 63, no. So there's 100, so if you look at that, there's 101 projects, 111 projects across the carry forward and capital programs for this year.
28.
And so it's 28 are completed so far. So there is work to do. There's a lot of those projects are in progress. Well, what I'm not showing is the number of projects that are listed as in progress. For example, some of it is out of our control. In the services space, a number of those numbers refer to individual plan items that have been purchased. So a lot of those 14 projects that are completed in the carry forwards are all planned items related to plant. So
Which you've committed but they haven't received yet.
well, they've been received and closed out. There's still a couple there open, and most of that 31 that's in the carry forward for services relates to those individual plant items which have been ordered, and now we're just waiting for them to be delivered.
31, sorry, Lisa, 31. Oh, sorry, in this year.
Yeah, in this year's.
Yeah. And they're not completed even if they're received until the trade has been executed or the sales occurred.
That's right.
Thank you. Makes it very difficult to budget to keep your books in on stream.
Yeah, so it's part of the budget process. We did for this year, when we were doing the budget, we went through all our 22, 23 projects and identified those ones as part of Budget Review 3, and then in the month or so after that as well, last year, and identified those projects that were potentially getting carried over, and that's how we ended up with the estimates at that point in time. When we did the Budget Review 1, we reviewed how those estimates versus the actuals of what it was carried forward, and we were relatively close, which was good to see. But yeah, certainly trying to keep that number of carry forwards down does make budgeting easier going forward. And I suppose the workload of what we're trying to deliver this year is certainly impacted by the number of projects and what projects are carried forward from the previous year.
We mentioned
Yeah, those
multiple things can change that from year,
yeah.
So of the 27 projects carried forward in 22, 23 for services, only 8 of them are projects other than planned. So there's 19 of 27 is planned. Is that right in saying that?
Well, it'll be 8 because the plant's one of those 9, but yes. 1, 2, 3, 4,
4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 not counting the plant. So if I take those 8 off the 27 projects coming forward,
19 of them were planned items.
yeah, 19 is planned. So you take 19 and make that 1, because it's one area of council, all of a sudden you take 48 back to 30, you know what I mean? Like, so plan definitely blows that out.
Yeah, right, so each article of plant is a number, it's not plant. Yeah.
Well, they're grouped into,
plant.
the only ones that are grouped together is like some of our white fleet, where we're purchasing 4 four-wheel drive utes for Alpha Depot, for example, or something like that would be one item.
What about 2 graders?
The graders were separate.
Yeah.
White fleet was where we
3, a couple of rollers. Yeah. So I just, it takes nothing away from the point that both you and Councillor Arthur have made, and it is very relevant that we need to be better at managing A, the work we can pull on, B, delivering it, and C, reporting it. And I'm not necessarily saying those in that order either. Like there's some of those 3 elements of budget transparency supersede the other. Reporting probably actually should take precedence over it all. It can be difficult to get right, but it needs to be aspired to. But yes, then if we are reporting accurately, then we have reporting more, I'm not saying it's not accurate, reporting more to a more granular detail. When we plan what we can do for the year, we can just sit back and we can't do that. We've never been able to deliver that volume of work in the history of this council. Officers, why ask us to do it now? No, that one, and that one, bullshit, can't do it. And then secondly, it does, as you say, allow you a better idea. The fact that we've just continually had a vicious cycle forever of not finishing them off, doing them next year, and then that means that value doesn't get done till the next year, means that probably the books aren't too badly affected. But when you've got that much flood damage sitting in there, that's my argument, is the books are affected. Because if we have to repay funding, as can happen with flood damage, as has happened with flood damage, where we get given the 30% deposit up front, the job doesn't run to 30% of the cost, we've got to then repay hundreds of thousands of dollars. It blows out our cash position and the accuracy of our financials immeasurably. But then when you look at, then to put the positive spin on it, 48 projects carried forward really looks like 39, with plan accounted for as one element of that. No, that's not right either. 29, sorry. 29, yeah. 29.
And then a lot of that 14 that has been delivered is the plant as well.
Yeah, that's right. There's 8 there that is, well, there's only 2 of them complete, and that's Landfill Aramac and Acacia Street Wall. They're both listed as complete. So you've got 2 items out of the 8 done, and 12 items out of the 29 or whatever it is, 27 for them. So, yeah, and then you look into the other areas, and the numbers are nowhere near as big as services. Like, doesn't make it better, but it means it's probably not all dire straits either. I'm just more concerned about the accuracy of the figures and the unreal expectations we deliver. And Councillor Arthur's mentioned this before. We signify to the community that we're going to do this in a year, well, we only get this much of it done. And is that just life, or is that bad planning, or is that bad luck, or is that, can be a combination of all of that? And I think that's where we still, Councillor Arthur, if I'm summarising your comments, where we've still got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, and because we know, organisationally, we know certain things, like it's over 2 years or whatever, but I don't think we present it very well, and it skews the figures, and especially those bigger ticket items, like it makes it look like we've got no chance in Buckley's of, well, we're sitting at 4 and 8% delivered halfway through the year, which, it's probably closer to 30 or 40, but the way the figures are, it looks like we're terribly underperforming.
Because it could be works that haven't been realised here, which we'll pay the next month before we bring it on.
The 3/4 of the year figure will probably, hopefully, catch a lot of these things up that are in procurement or delivery or in progress now. That's where you'd be hopeful, because otherwise the last 3 months of the year have got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from reporting when it comes to the plan, if we put in another column, expected delivery date, would that also help?
The problem is each item, unless you list each item, plan.
It'll be all over the place, because some could be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 12 months.
Normally we do it
18 months.
See, through you, Mr Mayor, it's sort of been a tradition that there's a bucket of money to spend in June. You know, that's over the years that, gee whiz, you know, we've got this much money to spend, it's got to be spent in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So, forward planning.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further comments on the resolution where we adopt the amended operational budget from the summary and receive that project progress report containing both carried forward projects and current year projects? Do I have a move up? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Gleeson. Any further debate? Those in favour? 7-0. Given that we've just discussed finances and the hour of the day, we will please proceed to the next agenda item 3.3.1. Can I have somebody move that the financial performance report be received? Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Hanson. Those in favour? 7-0. Dick.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I know that a lot of all the detail that's referred to in here has probably just been superseded, or been superseded in some cases now that we've adopted BR2, but it is referring to the figures from Budget Review 1. Also, just before we get into the detail of the statements and how they're progressing, the financial statements for 22-23, the audit is still being undertaken. We have asked for a further extension from the 15th of December, which I haven't seen any correspondence to confirm whether that's approved, to, I think it's the 15th of February. A lot of the issues that we're facing at the moment appear with the auditors having to reschedule a lot of their time and effort, given the extension in the initial place. Also, the QAO office was closed for a couple of weeks over Christmas, along with the external auditors, so they haven't been able to complete all the testing that they wanted to complete. Andrew and his team have certainly put a primary focus on this, hence why I've been undertaking the budget review and a few of the other financial items at a high level, while they've been focused on this project to get back to these, to make sure there's no hold up from our end. But unfortunately, there's still some delays there, which they're now estimating. They've given us some advice the 15th of February is attainable. And the plan will be to, have the audit committee meeting just prior to the 15th for the consideration of the financials and get them submitted to the Department of Local Government as per our required process. And then at the February meeting would be then to adopt the annual report at that meeting. And I'm happy to talk about some of the challenges with that offline, I think, rather than in the open discussion. But we've got a plan with the financials from last year at this point in time. Jumping into the current year progress, largely the overall we are progressing okay. Budget review documents did point out we are a little under budget in a lot of areas, but that is reflected in both operational and expenditure across the board. The rates and levies and charges are on track for the first half year, has been issued, or had been issued, and we're reflecting the numbers presented. And in the amendment, we saw that we actually were able to increase the expected income, particularly from our water and sewage spaces. The fees and charges have been performing in line with our expectations, and the recoverable works income is trending okay. The grants and subsidies are running slightly under budget. As we were just talking about, the flood damage accounts for a significant amount of this, and certainly take the Mayor's point that we are probably over projecting what we're expecting to get in grant funding, as well as the amount of expenditure we're expecting to spend as well. Interest, as I mentioned in the budget review, is performing very well. Currently the QTC is giving us a more superior rate or advantageous rate than we can from the term deposits from those that we polled. And we'll continue to do that review on a monthly basis to ensure we're getting the best interest rate possible. And given that the interest rate is certainly or in advance, or if it is comparable, having that cash at call is a bit more advantageous for us. Material and services is under budget, and this is expected to increase once our flood damage work starts to come in. I do know there's a few invoices that we are expecting in the near future that will bulk that up. The employee benefits, as we talked about before in the budget review, was slightly over. We've just made some amendments to correct that. The year-to-date maintenance, as I mentioned, the rural roads is significantly over year-to-date, but still under annual budget. But we'll review that in budget review 3 to see whether that needs to be amended. But the road crews have certainly commenced on projects other than road maintenance, and town street maintenance for that matter. With other work going on. Plant costs are running about as expected, noting that the over there is related to the insurance, which was fully paid up front, so that's progressing as per budget. And Parks and Gardens, there's been an amendment made in the budget to reflect where our actuals are expected to be coming into financial year. So, and I suppose it does reflect the early wet season and the need to focus in on a bit more in Parks and Gardens, particularly mowing with the early rain. Financial position, our cash at bank has increased due to the 30% upfront QRA payment for the Aramac region, so we did receive that approval in December, and that was a nice Christmas present for us. I think it was basically come in, might even been the last day of work before Christmas. The high receivables balance is due to those contract assets, so where we have received, where we have undertaken work for roads recovery and LR CIP 1, 2 and 3. They're still being finalised and closed out by our auditors and also the federal government, so hopefully we'll have those resolved in the next few weeks as well, and that balance can be reduced to be a bit more representative of where we're actually at. But when that comes in, that's basically just cash straight into our bank. The large cash balance is somewhat offset though by our trades and other payables, which does contain, while we have that cash sitting in our cash at bank for like the prepayments for QRA, the payments for that is sitting there as a liability at the moment on our books because we haven't undertaken the work in some cases, in a large number of those cases. But as we get through flood damage over the next few months particularly, we'll lead into that 30% upfront payment, and that will start to just flow out to our, as part of our general revenue. So the plant, as I mentioned, has a number of items that have been ordered and are progressing, and we've are nearing completion on the Texas and Aramac Jericho flood damage projects as well. Look at our cash, how it's progressing. We've been maintaining that balance, I suppose, north of 28 million for a while now, or that 25 to 30 million for a while, which is good with additional cash coming in. And I suppose that's reflective of our increased interest revenue. Currently is 11 million of dollars in cash that's restricted related to those grants, particularly around the flood damage and our CIP 4. And we're looking at our unrestricted cash expense ratio. We are meeting that 4-month target that we should be meeting, and also as our surplus cash is sitting at around 7 months. So certainly looking very good with that healthy cash balance. Yeah, I like the report for councils. Thank you.
Questions for Dan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to the audit, what is, like, an amendment, there's been an amendment required to financial statements, which has generated additional sampling. What's that mean, Dan?
So the auditors did find an error in some of our accruals. So in recognising accrual accounting, it looks at the expenditure that we've spent this half year, like post 30 June. That relates to work from the previous year, and we need to make that representative in last year's financial statements. When that cutover was initially taken, there's obviously been a number of months that passed, and there was a couple of other major invoices that were paid that should have been taken into account. So that's been rectified, but that has then generated a bit of additional testing.
Longer time.
Basically, they found an error, and so to check that that wasn't symptomatic of the whole organisation from their small sampling set, they wanted to make sure that there wasn't an endemic problem there.
Yep.
So they took a bigger sample set, which the bigger the sample set, the longer it takes to process that.
Because they shut down over Christmas, because they purely out, they couldn't.
Explain it slowly.
Not ideal. Okay, Councillor Leeson. Councillor Haynes. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Arnold.
No.
Thank you, Dan.
My only comment is that the trade and other payables figure is going to remain until we start to eat into that. And you would hope that some of the closeouts of the Texas Road and Jericho Aramac roads, which would be getting close, I would suggest, pending whatever happens in the next couple of days. We'd be close to, practical completion is probably already close. We'd be very close to finalising those claims, which would then, once that's done, that funds would be paid, that would draw down, draw out of the amount we've already been paid for those specific projects. Would that be right?
So the process we're doing at the moment is a monthly check on that. So the expenditure and flood damage that we're doing each month is being journaled across to be taken up month to month, as opposed to waiting for the equivalence. Particularly for those two projects, considering they'll be completed this year.
We've already let a contract for them, so I'm just thinking about it. No, I'll do this in closed session, open session, sorry, not closed. So are we confident that the work on those two roads, given that they were specifically singled out, they're not part of a larger package, will exceed the 30% upfront payment that we got for them? We didn't answer that question back when we awarded the tender, but given what's come to light, it's not now. So we won't have to refund QRA.
That's correct. For those two roads, for those two claims, it'll be fine.
Right. So when you say you do your monthly reconciliation, do you draw down from that trade and other payables?
Only on the funding that's been received, so that 30% up until that is all expended for that particular funding allocation.
Yep.
That is drawn down as we spend it.
Right. So that won't reduce as a result of those two roads being finished, is what I'm saying. Other than the last month.
If it's exceeded the 30%, it won't change. No.
No. But even the 30% won't. You've been drawing down that 30% on a monthly basis as you've been paying claims.
That's correct.
Right. So it might not go down, but what could come up is the revenue, because we have paid the bills to do the work. So our expense side, once we've exceeded the 30%, we're already drawn out.
It becomes a contract asset then.
which the equivalent brings in
Because
as well.
we've spent money that we're owed for the work that we've completed, so it becomes an asset.
Well, and once it's acquitted, it becomes cash because QRA pays
Gives
for it.
money. Then it becomes
Right.
revenue.
Yeah, but I'm happy with that, now I understand.
Just waiting on the contract manager.
Momentarily, our cash can drop, but we get it back, it's a
You said it's
It's a given.
receivable.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably more than momentarily, and that's the point I want to point out, Council. I'd say we paid the last, so practical completion on one of those jobs might have been just before Christmas, perhaps the last big bill might have been received. Would I be right in saying that? Like, one of those roads was all but done, hey?
Yeah, there's, through Mr Mayor, or to answer you, Mr Mayor, there's been a little bit more damage done during the last lot of storms. So
Right.
they're doing a bit of remediation.
Right, all right, so, but let's just say that hadn't happened, we would have been paying, the work was underway for 6 months, we were paying monthly bills for 6 months, we might have exceeded the 30% at the 4-month mark. This is all hypothetical, I haven't asked this question. So if then we're 2 months behind, and then we could be still another 3 months before QRA close that out and give us our share. So our expenses and our trade payables figure won't move, but our revenue will grow because we know that we've exceeded the 30%.
Only at the point of us receiving that money in that case.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's right, at some point out there,
Yes.
March, April, we could see that money come back that's already walked out the door.
Yes.
Right, well, that's positive. So where do we present that? Because you just said a contract asset, but where does that sit in the balance sheet?
In the balance sheet, so
Rather.
it'll either sit in, it'll be covering costs, so it'll be net zero into retained surplus or deficits. But the grant funding we received and haven't spent yet sits under the trades and other payables. And the expenditure that we've spent on those grants or we haven't been paid for sits in the receivables.
Okay, so it's hidden in amongst that 6.6. Right.
So at the moment, a lot of that 6.6 outside of your rates and your debtors and things like that relates to our LRCIP programs for 1, 2 and 3 that have been, the work's been completed and claimed, but it hasn't been, the audits haven't been finalised and the money hasn't been received. And that R2R one, we've asked for an amendment to that, which is being assessed at the moment from the last claim.
Terry's opened the door to a question, but I'm going to ask that during his report. Does anyone have any more questions for, and it's just about photos and damage to works, Kerry, it's nothing forward and about what's coming down our throat in the next couple of days. Has anyone got any more questions for finance? There being none, we'll break for lunch. Thank you.